All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cackling a huge topic. Why do we get old? And maybe, just maybe, what can we actually do about it? We're going to dive deep into the incredible work of Dr. David Sinclair to find out. So let's just start with a really big idea, a question that kind of flips everything on its head. What if getting older isn't, well, inevitable? What if it's actually a disease we can treat? I mean, just thinking about it that way changes everything, right? It totally reframes how we look at health. Okay, so if we're going to talk about fighting aging, we've got to start by asking, what even is it? We need a new definition. It's pretty wild when you think about it. The textbook definition of aging is basically a decline in health that leads to sickness and eventually death. Now, doesn't that sound an awful lot like the definition of a disease? I mean, it's a process that makes us sick. Simple as that. So why isn't it officially called a disease? Well, it turns out the only reason is this kind of random, arbitrary rule that says something can't be a disease if it happens to more than half of us. That's it. And because of that little technicality, we end up just treating the symptoms of aging. The heart disease, the cancer, the Alzheimer's, instead of going after the root cause. And that root cause, oh, it's huge. We're talking about the primary driver behind a staggering 80 to 90% of all major diseases. Just let that sink in for a second. If we could slow down aging, most of these other diseases would barely be a problem. It really makes you think that tackling aging itself is the ultimate form of preventative medicine, right? Okay, so if aging is the real enemy here, what's actually causing it at a really fundamental biological level? Well, it all comes down to a loss of information. See, our bodies have two types of information. First, you've got your DNA. That's the digital stuff. The best way to think about it is like the music on a CD. It's super stable, the data's locked in. But then you have the analog information, the epigenome, and that is the CD player. It's the machine that actually reads the music and tells each of your cells which songs to play, which genes to turn on or off. And this, right here, is where the trouble begins. Over time, that CD player, our epigenome, gets scratched up. The laser reader gets damaged. And what happens when your CD player is scratched? The music skips, it plays the wrong tracks. Well, that's exactly what happens in our bodies. Our cells get confused. They forget what they're supposed to be. A skin cell starts acting a little like a neuron, and they stop working right. That is the information theory of aging. Now, this is absolutely crucial. Your health, your longevity, it's not all about the DNA you inherited. A massive 80% of your longevity is actually controlled by the epigenome, by that CD player. And you know what the best part is? Unlike your DNA, which is pretty much set, you can actually influence your epigenome. You can polish the scratches, so to speak. All right, so if our biological CD player is getting all scratched up, that begs the question, what's doing the scratching? Well, it turns out the damage isn't from one single thing. It's actually a side effect of something our bodies do all day, every day: repair. Think about it. Every single day, our DNA gets broken. It could be from sun exposure, X-rays, even just normal chemical reactions in our cells. When that happens, our body's repair crews have to rush in to fix the break. But here's the catch. While they're fixing the DNA, they're not very tidy. They knock things around, they disrupt the beautiful organized packaging of our DNA, and they leave behind these little epigenetic scratches. Over decades, these scratches build up, and cells start to lose their way. Okay, but here's where it gets really, really good. This isn't just a story about damage and decay. The science is now showing us that we actually have the power to protect that information. We can fight back. We can literally help our bodies polish the scratches on that CD. The secret lies in tapping into our body's ancient survival systems. See, we evolved to be incredibly resilient. We have these built-in defense circuits that fight aging, but they don't just turn on by themselves. They need a trigger. They need a little bit of what's called beneficial stress, things like being hungry or pushing yourself physically. And one of the main players in this defense system is a group of 7 genes called sirtuins. You can think of them as the guardians of your epigenome, your own personal anti-aging squad. And how do you wake them up? By getting hungry or exercising. That's their signal to get to work. And the effect of activating these pathways is just mind-blowing. We see it again and again in studies. When you put animals on a calorie-restricted diet, so they're under that good stress, they live longer. And not just a little bit longer, we're talking up to 30% longer. That's a huge extension of their healthy life. So, this is how it all connects. When you fast, you basically create the perfect storm for longevity. You flick the switch on for those protective sirtuin genes, and at the exact same time, you flick the switch off for a pathway called mTOR, which is all about growth and can actually speed up aging. It's the perfect 1-2 punch for protecting yourself. So next time you skip a meal, remember, you're not just feeling a bit hungry. You are literally kicking off this incredible chain reaction inside your body. You're turning on your longevity genes, you're lowering your insulin levels, and you're firing up something called autophagy, which is basically your cell's built-in cleanup crew, getting rid of all the old, junky parts. It's a total system reset. And the most important takeaway here is that this is not just some complicated science experiment. It's stuff you can actually do. We're talking about simple, actionable things, like maybe skipping breakfast a few times a week, making sure you get some exercise to keep your muscles strong and fuel those sirtuins, and eating more veggies to keep inflammation down. These small changes can have a seriously powerful impact. You know, what all of this really means is that we've probably been underestimating our own bodies this whole time. We have this incredible built-in ability to heal and recover. It's not about waiting for some magic pill. It's about learning how to tap into the powerful rejuvenation systems we were born with. At the end of the day, this isn't just about adding more years to your life. It's about adding more life to your years. It's about staying healthy, feeling vibrant, and being able to do the things you love for as long as possible. So it leaves us with one final question to think about. If you could slow down your own aging clock, what would you do with all that extra healthy time?